Hey, this is Matt O'Leary, and this is a review of the new album from Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith. It's called The Kid. Kaitlyn makes electronic music, but before you leave, because that's not your thing, please just give her a chance. She's done really cool remixes of a Dee Dee Dumbo song and a Max Richter song, and she even did a score to something that comedian Reggie Watts did, which I think is such a perfect combo. But she also has 6 total studio albums now. Her 5th album from last year was called Ears, and it really reached outside of this restrictive electronic music realm to reach fans who were on the outside of the genre, including myself, as it ended up on the top 15 list of 2016 for me. She started out by just aimlessly experimenting with modular synthesizers, and now she's doing things more intentionally. She's really composing now. She uses this big thing called the Buchla Music Easel, which is just this baffling hunk of metal with colorful wires and buttons. But Ears was not just a mechanical album. It wasn't just knob turning. The sound palette wasn't explicitly electronic, in that bleep bloopy sense. Instead, Kaitlyn's synthetic sounds came across as organic and natural. Maybe not natural in this world per se, but like something I'd expect to hear on Malacandra or something. Smith is actually from Orcas Island in Washington, and I was thinking maybe some of that remoteness, maybe some of that isolation, at least geographically, from an upbringing there, just infused her music with some of these qualities. Ears wasn't necessarily warm. There was definitely something alien about it. The opener from The Kid is undergirded by this strong pulsing drone. It's called I Am a Thought, and it just sort of hints at the potential textures you can expect to hear. There are just these little flashes of odd effects and noises. It's kind of like you walked into a toy store and you took a bunch of dolls and jack-in-the-boxes and springs and wound them all up at once and let them go. Thematically, the record aims to take you through the whole lifespan of a human, so it's a pretty adventurous, a pretty ambitious concept. And I think this is an apt starting point because it feels like in this song that we haven't quite burst through yet. We're just maybe a thought in our parents' head at this point. The next few songs are much more accessible, much faster developing than any of her work to this point. The song in Intention gets right to the point, and then the title track, The Kid, has this show-stopping moment when the churning beat disappears and we get this massive blast of choral vocals. It's so triumphant, and I just want a little more of it. It's just this addictive little Kaitlyn's created this very unique vocal sound. I feel like you just have to hear it to understand, but once you do, you'll recognize any of her music instantly. And I love it on In Intention or The Kid or In the World But Not of the World. On that last song in particular, there's this very subtle vocal harmony, which is always a 5th interval above Kaitlyn's melody, so a pretty standard interval, but it's this very regal Middle Ages sound, and it's mixed with this playful melody, which is just a bizarre combo. It's this, stately, rigid harmony, but juxtaposed by this loosey-goosey tune and this messy splatter of instrumentation. One of my favorite songs here is I Will Make Room for You, which is nestled in right near the end. On this album, Kaitlyn's teamed up with this European orchestral collective called Stargaze, and they're definitely more prominent on this song. Stargaze has worked with a ton of artists, including Julia Holzer and Niels Fromm and Greg Saunier from Deerhoof. They even did a score with Ryuichi Sakamoto and Bryce Dessner on the movie The Revenant, which is one of my favorite soundtracks. I love that moment in I Will Make Room for You where the woodwind and synth and bass lines are all weaving together about halfway through. It reminds me a lot of John Anderson's solo album from the 70s, Elias' Sun Hilo, that Eastern ethereal orchestral electronic fusion. Also, some of these instrumental transition tracks sound amazing on headphones, like the song I Am Consumed with the panning effects going back and forth. The clarity of it is unreal. So, there's a lot to love about this album, The Kid. First off, the songs take way less patience than anything on Ears. The instrumental palette is massive, and Kaitlyn's vocals are still is so one of a kind. But I think there's some major ways this falls short. First off, those big brass moments that were on ears are mostly absent here. There are little touches of it, like on the song I Will Make Room for You, but nothing nearly as striking. I'm also not as crazy about the beats on this one. I feel like there's a lack of low-end bass punch and a lot of tedious meandering, and that just lack of dynamic has got to be my biggest complaint. Tracks like I Am Learning or Until I Remember are perfect examples of this, where the only reason they're even interesting is due to the vocal and orchestral arrangements. There are also tracks like To Follow and Lead, which kind of bring me back to Animal Collective's album Painting With. It's a very similar reason why I didn't feel like I connected with that album, and that's that the squelching and sputtering electronics just felt a little bit flat and lifeless in the end. Another big thing is I really struggled to follow this lifespan theme, even though I thought it was a great idea. With all the vocal effects going on, it's really hard to decipher the lyrics. I really struggled with that. I feel like somebody's got to put these online. I did feel like there's a little bit of success with this when I realized that there's kind of a gradual shift from the beginning tracks, which are a little more poppy and a little more childlike in a way, and then you get to the end of the album and it's more full-bodied orchestral arrangements, maybe a little more mature. But I feel like this could have been emphasized even more, and some of the middle parts of the album were really a slog to get through. I did really like certain little moments, but it didn't feel nearly as connected and complete as Ears. And that's a bit of a problem because her intention was lost a little bit. She wanted this to be cohesive and comprehensive, but for me, it's more of a pick-and-choose buffet. Overall, Smith is an incredibly talented and incredibly unique artist, and just because this one didn't quite click for me, it'd be a shame if you didn't go check her stuff out. Really, you've never heard anything like this before. And she's part of this growing number of electronic artists that I really like that are putting more subtle spin on the genre, like Mark Pritchard or Floating Points. So 5.5 out of 10 for me on The Kid, but definitely go check out Kaitlyn's stuff. She's garnering a little more attention in the alternative music world, but she deserves even more. That's it for me, so thank you so much for watching.